based on their shareholding, another part their use of the services, whether it is in the form of how much milk they poured or whatever that is. So in a member-based organization, the interesting part is that no one outside will benefit. Let us say, for example, to run this CBO which is involved in livelihood promotion, they borrowed some $1,000 from a bank. What would they pay the bank? Will the bank get the profit from the cooperative? Yeah, if let's say they borrowed some money to do the business, will they share the profit with the bank? No. So they will only pay the interest to the bank. So in this particular case, the money they get in the form of shareholding, they get certain profit because the level of use of the service. Someone who poured more milk, someone who poured less milk, proportionate to that, they get the remaining part of the profit, the residuary claim. Okay? Or what she called as the patronage. So the benefit is based on the patronage. The one who uses more of the services of the membership-based organization. Let us say, for example, we are buying paddy. Like someone who produced 100 bags, that means he contributed more to the business of that organization. They'll get more. Okay? So, why I wanted you to understand those principles is that in a membership-based organization, which is a for-profit organization, but the way the profit is distributed is through this kind of a mutual benefit process. Okay? So I thought it will be very interesting and important, and I know that you are visiting Mulkanur Cooperative.
Yes.
So I want you to understand this when you go to the field. Please ask these questions. How do they share the profit at the end of the year? The profit is shared based on the shareholding plus the patronage, the use of the services of that cooperative. These are the two ways in which, and the money is not going to anyone else. The money is only among them. That is why it is mutual benefit. But it is a for-profit entity. It is a business entity. Okay? So it's very important that we understand the forms of organizations. So in a not-for-profit, you are getting grants, spending, and it's over. In a for-profit, someone invests, and if there is profit, the investor gets it. If there is a loss, the investor loses it. But in a mutual benefit organization, because they are both users and owners, so they get both. So in a way, the entire profit that the enterprise is able to generate will stay within the membership, within the community. Okay? So maybe we will quickly, in this context, turn to some of the questions that have been asked. The first question is about SHGs. Yeah. Please, yeah.
So, like, since it's of two types, like it is the profit is for the shareholders or for the members, plus the other one according to the patronage.
A decision is made because the principle is that on their share capital they should get a reasonable return.
Yes.
So they normally say 12% or 15% is the return on the investment or the shareholding. The remaining money is based on the patronage. So profit of $100, normally maybe less than 1/3 is distributed for their shareholding, but most of the money is distributed in the form of bonus that they get based on the patronage in the services of a CBO rather than just being a member. So you don't want anyone to be a passive saver without using the services.
So they don't kind of save again from the profits.
They could. In fact, sometimes what happens is it's a very interesting thing. Yeah, it's a good question. See, the profit that is supposed to be given to the members, you will ask this question to Mulkanur. They will only do the book entry. They will keep the money with the cooperative so that they are able to grow the business. So sometimes half of the money is given, half of the money is kept with the CBO. Return on their share on the patronage. Okay, so when you go to Mulkanur, please probe this further. You will get some very interesting, understanding there. Okay. The self-help group program is all about reaching the unreached. Okay, so please think of two questions first. One question is that there is this whole issue of financial inclusion. Have you gone through some financial inclusion discussion? Who? The game is about those who are not within the banking ambit. They should be included so that they become part of the economic growth and development. Okay, so the self-help groups or any social mobilization and community organization is about reaching the unreached. Okay, so oftentimes the SHG members that are there are landless. They are supposed to be the landless, or what in Andhra we very popularly call that as POP, poorest of the poor. Okay, so the poorest of the poor are mobilized and organized, and the habit of saving is induced. It is not just a facilitation. There is a very strong inducement process that happens. Why that kind of inducement happens is that they have to gain that kind of belief that savings is possible. So what government does is, once these people are organized and mobilized, then they will provide some benefits, whether it is maybe providing them land. But all of these people have some cash flows. There is some income, there is some expenditure. Maybe their expenditure is always more than the income. Okay, so one of the significant group that self-help groups work with is landless. And again, when you go to the field, you will see it. The approach followed is saturation, so that every poor family has a membership in the self-help group, so that the self-help group gives them the confidence, gives them the platform. At the same time, they are able to access various rights and entitlements from the government. So, and in some cases land. In fact, a large number of families have been given land. So previously they were not landowners, today they have land because the government has given land. So SHG is more, at least in India, the self-help group is seen as a mechanism for the government to reach the unreached. So that is how it's kind of looked at. Yes, I guess, my sense of this whole issue sustainability is that how strong is our CBO? Is the community-based organization that you are promoting, is it strong? Has there been enough capacity building, hand-holding? And more importantly, the activity in which they are involved, does it have a long life? Let us say, for example, they are involved in an activity, tomorrow that activity becomes irrelevant. Okay? Let us say, take the example of pot making, pottery. Let us say you formed a cooperative of all the pot makers. Suddenly, because of the invasion of plastic, the market for pots disappears. Almost non-existent. So then what will happen to the pot makers? They may make the pots, but no one is willing to buy, so they may be out of business. So you will have to see, is the livelihood initiative that they will be engaged in has a long-term life? And of course, are they managing it effectively? When you talk about sustainability, we talk about institutional sustainability and financial sustainability. So, it's all about, do they have the capacity to manage their own affairs? And the financial is, are they able to meet their costs? Okay. And oftentimes in livelihood-based CBOs, there may be financial capability but not institutional capability because not enough capacity has not been built, systems have not been developed. Oftentimes accounting, financial management systems are weak. Sometimes they have institutional capabilities, but oftentimes they don't have working capital. So they are suffering from that kind of issues. So, but what we have seen in the places that you will be visiting is that any community-based organization that is involved in activity that has a long life is likely to survive. So, for example, savings and credit. So, it is an activity which is required from what is called womb to tomb. Have you heard of this? From the child, from the time the child is in the womb till you die and even afterwards. You need financial services throughout the life and beyond life. So that is why self-help groups or any community-based organization engaged in financial services is able to survive, because these services are required for their full life, even after life death. For example, a lot of self-help groups support when someone dies so that they have a respectable burial or whatever rituals that have to be performed after death. Okay? So, sustainability is, in my opinion, is a relative concept. You know, what are you looking at? Are you talking about the results, the impact, or are you talking about the institution itself? Oftentimes, the institutional sustainability is determined by the longevity of the activity that they will be taking. Okay.
How to pursue CBOs to participate in livelihood programs?
Yeah, that's an interesting question our friend asked. You know, by the way, oftentimes, is it the chicken first or the egg first? So do you promote CBO and then start thinking of livelihood activities, or because you have an end goal in itself, so you promote CBOs? A lot of CBOs in India have failed simply because they didn't have clarity of purpose and objectives. You know, if there is clarity of purpose and objectives, then oftentimes those institutions survive. So, if there are CBOs that have been promoted for some other purpose and you want them to participate in livelihood program, then they must feel the need for it. We can't obviously thrust it on them. It has to be coming from the CBO itself. Okay. So, in fact, we have big issues within the country where the group is promoted for a particular purpose. Now you want them to do something else and they are not too keen about it. And Northeast, I'm sure you have a lot of issues because of sparsity of population. You know, any group-based or federation kind of a structure, you need higher population density and you need to follow a saturation approach. But if you don't have that, then institutions have difficulty in functioning effectively. You know, by the way, it has been proved beyond doubt that self-help groups can be promoted of all types of, all sections of the society. We have in Andhra Pradesh, we have self-help groups of the persons with disability. We have self-help groups of the aged. Very successful self-help groups of the aged, old people. We have self-help groups of the youth. We have self-help groups of the adolescent girls. So, as long as you go through a systematic process of mobilization, organization, you can promote self-help groups. And I think youth naturally want to come together, learn from each other, inspire each other, learn from each other's innovations. You know, you can't force them to be too disciplined, but at the same time they may have their own ways of doing things, particularly in terms of, if you ask them to do a lot of savings, maybe they don't have that kind of income sources, but youth kind of generally, mobilizing and organizing them very easy, but you need to have creative ideas, maybe sports, maybe they are involved in some skill development, then they get more excited whenever you are trying to organize.
Why successful SHGs always have women?
Good question. I guess again this question has been asked and answered a lot of times. Oftentimes what we have seen is women are much more responsible and much more committed to follow discipline, follow norms. A large number of self-help groups of the men have been promoted. In fact, Myrada in the initial years promoted, even now they have a lot of men's self-help groups. But they find it very difficult to follow norms. By the way, I think in Bangladesh now some of the MFIs target men also. But this is individual lending, not group-based lending. Okay, I'm sure there are some groups in Sri Lanka of men. Oftentimes around agriculture, there are a lot of men's groups. These are called farmers groups. In our state, there are supposed to be now some of these joint liability groups. There are supposed to be something like almost 200,000 self-help groups. But it is always seen that women groups have more cohesion. They are more tolerant of each other. They are more willing to learn from each other. They are willing to follow their own norms of regular savings, regular meetings, and they don't want to default and be seen by others as not.
I understand the characteristics of women, making the SHG's women groups successful. Issue for women in the rural areas.
Correct.
Livelihoods is also for the men. So then what is the option there? If you don't have women.
No, that's why I'm saying.
It looks like the men are getting neglected.
Yeah.
Now they are not without their responsibility.
That's why if you see a primary agriculture cooperatives, the PACs are full of men. And now a lot of NGOs that are involved in MKSP, the Mahila Kishan Sashaktikan Pariyojana, while the women self-help groups are involved, simultaneously there are mobilization of farmers groups. In fact, NABARD has promoted a large number of farmers clubs of the men. So there are cooperatives, farmers groups, or in Andhra they are called Raitu Mitra groups, of men also. But in terms of following discipline, there has been a bit of an issue. So, but at the same time, if you want to promote a producer cooperative, producer company, then I think men institutions, there are a number of examples and case studies of successful men's cooperatives. So I guess my idea was that I could have bombarded you with some kind of a presentation, but I thought I'll keep it a bit more informal, a bit more flexible. The fact that it's a smaller group. So on these institutional forms, I have a small paper. I'll share it with you, because unless you understand organizational forms, it will be difficult for you to be effective in livelihood promotion, both from a legal perspective as well as from a institutional design perspective. Okay? Thank you very much and all the best.
On behalf of the participants from 10 countries in Asia, we would like to thank Mr. Reddy for the wonderful sharing and enlightenment on the CBO. We hope that we could implement and we could fully differentiate the non-profit and profit organization. So thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. But when you go to Mulkanur, ask the questions. That's where I think the maximum learning. You will all enjoy it. Will they be visiting the dairy cooperative also?
Yes.